Hello, and a huge welcome to the channel. If you're looking for cross-dressing stories that are emotional, intriguing, and truly empowering, you've come to the right place. My name is Ethan Carter, and for the last 2 years, my professional world has consisted of me and 6 women. It sounds like the setup to a bad joke. I know, but it's just my life. After getting laid off from my first post-college gig during a minor recession, I landed a job at a small administrative office that handles document management for a larger law firm, filing, data entry, records management. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. The office itself is small, a self-contained unit where everyone knows everyone else's business. My co-workers Julie, Becky, Janet, Monica, Heather, and Laura are all in their late 20s to early 30s. We're a team, and the pay is equal across the board. The atmosphere is usually friendly, almost like a family, a slightly dysfunctional, gossip-prone family, but a family nonetheless. Our dress code is business casual, which is a term so vague it's almost meaningless. For me, it meant slacks and a button-down shirt. For the women, it meant slacks or nice tops. They almost never wore skirts or dresses. I'd learned early on that this was due to a bizarrely old-fashioned clause in the employee handbook. A relic from the law firm's founding days, skirts or dresses had to be accompanied by nylons. Not tights, not leggings, but proper pantyhose or stockings. The women unanimously agreed this was an archaic and uncomfortable rule, so they simply opted for pants. I never thought much about it, until the day my big mouth got me into a world of trouble. It started, as most office conflicts do, over lunch. We were all gathered around the large table in our break room, unwrapping sandwiches and popping open cans of soda. The conversation, as it often did, veered into fashion. "I saw the cutest sundress at Macy's this weekend," Heather said, scrolling through her phone. But then I thought, where would I even wear it? I can't wear it here. "Tell me about it," Becky chimed in. "I have a closet full of dresses just gathering dust because of that stupid nylon rule. Who even wears pantyhose anymore?" "My grandma." A chorus of agreement went around the table. I was mostly zoning out, munching on my turkey on rye, when Julie turned her attention to me. "What about you?" Ethan. The lone male perspective. What do you guys even think about stuff like this? I should have given a non-committal shrug. I should have said, "Whatever makes you comfortable." I should have done a lot of things. Instead, I swallowed my bite of sandwich and said the words that would derail the next 2 weeks of my life. "Honestly," I said, trying to sound casual, "I don't get what the big deal is. I think women look great in dresses and skirts. It's a classic look. And the whole nylon thing. I mean, I think it looks nice. Kind of sexy. You know better than bare legs. In my opinion. More polished." Silence. 6 pairs of eyes were suddenly fixed on me. I felt a prickle of unease. Janet, who was usually the quietest, spoke up first. "More polished. What does that even mean?" "I don't know." I fumbled, realizing I'd stepped on a landmine. It completes the look. It's professional. I just don't understand why you all make such a fuss about it. They can't be that uncomfortable. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "They can't be that uncomfortable," Monica repeated, her voice laced with ice. "Ethan, have you ever worn a pair of pantyhose for 8 hours straight under office lighting? Have you ever felt that waistband digging into your stomach, or gotten a run 5 minutes after putting them on, or felt them making you sweat in places you didn't know could sweat? It's condescending." "Ethan," Laura added, crossing her arms, "for you to sit there and tell us what's comfortable for our bodies. It's a classic case of a man telling women how they should dress to please his aesthetic, without any regard for their actual experience." "Whoa," Hey, I didn't mean it like that, I said, holding my hands up defensively. I was just giving my opinion. You asked. You didn't give an opinion. You dismissed our feelings, Julie said, her usual friendly demeanor gone. You basically said our comfort is less important than your preference for how we look. The argument escalated from there. I felt like I was on trial, with words like patriarchal and mansplaining being thrown around like weapons. I tried to apologize, but it came out defensive and clumsy. By the time lunch was over, the air was thick with resentment. The next few days were hell. The easy chatter of the office was replaced by a strained, formal silence whenever I was near. Coffee was made, without anyone offering me a cup. Lunch invitations ceased. I was an island in a sea of cold shoulders. I felt isolated, misunderstood, and frankly, a little pissed off. But mostly, I was sorry. I hadn't meant to be a jerk. I was just clueless. By Friday afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I found Julie and Becky in the break room, and I offered what I hoped was a sincere, unconditional apology. Look, I said, my voice low. I'm really sorry about what I said the other day. It was stupid and insensitive. I had no right to comment on what you should or shouldn't wear, or what is or isn't comfortable for you. I was way out of line. They listened, their expressions unreadable. For a long moment, I thought they were going to just ignore me. Then, a slow smile spread across Julie's face. It wasn't a warm smile. It was a calculating one. An apology is a good start. Ethan, she said, but words are cheap. How do we know you really get it? Becky leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. Yeah, how do you prove you understand what it's like? An idea was clearly forming between them. I could practically see the light bulbs appearing over their heads. We have a proposal for you, Julie said, her eyes gleaming. You think pantyhose aren't that bad. You think wearing a skirt all day is no big deal. Fine. Prove it. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? The challenge, Becky said, picking up the thread. For 2 weeks, 10 workdays you come to the office wearing a skirt or a dress. And, Julie added, delivering the killing blow, it has to be worn with hosiery, pantyhose or stockings, the full experience. In exchange, we'll accept your apology. And, to show we're good sports, we'll start wearing skirts and dresses to the office sometimes, to satisfy your preference. I stared at them, dumbfounded. They had to be joking. You're kidding. Right, I can't do that. I'm a guy. That's the point. Julie said, it's about empathy. Walking a mile in someone else's shoes. Or, in this case, someone else's pantyhose and heels. The thought was mortifying. Me, in a dress. At work. But then I looked at their faces, resolute and united. This was my only way out of the doghouse. The silence, the isolation it was wearing me down. And a part of me, a tiny masochistic part, was curious. What was it like? Fine, I heard myself say, the word tasting like surrender. I'll do it. But I have conditions. Julie raised an eyebrow. Oh. 1. Nobody makes fun of me. No laughing. No jokes. This is a serious experiment. Right 2. This is for the office only. I wear my own clothes to and from work and change here. 3. You have to help me. I don't know the first thing about any of this. I'll need guidance. They huddled for a moment, whispering. Then Julie turned back to me. We accept your conditions. But we have one more of our own. What is it? I asked, bracing myself. The hosiery. She said to really understand, you can't just wear it for 8 hours. You have to wear it all day, from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed, even under your guy clothes on the way here. You need to feel what it's like to live in them. I hesitated. The idea of wearing pantyhose under my jeans seemed even weirder than wearing a skirt in the office, but I was in too deep to back out now. I had to see this through. Deal, I said, sealing my fate with a single word. Julie's smile was genuine this time. Excellent. The challenge begins Monday. Be at my place Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for your fitting and prep session. Don't be late. I spent the rest of the weekend in a state of low-grade panic. What had I just agreed to? Every time I thought about it, a hot wave of embarrassment washed over me. But there was no backing out. On Sunday evening, with a sense of impending doom, I drove to Julie's apartment. When she opened the door, I saw that it wasn't just her. All 6 of them were there, sitting in her living room like a tribunal. The room was a sea of feminine paraphernalia. Dresses and skirts were draped over chairs, and the coffee table was covered with an intimidating array of packaged pantyhose, stockings, lacy underthings, and several pairs of shoes. It looked like a department store had exploded. Welcome to your intervention, Ethan, Becky said with a grin. All right, let's get started, Julie announced, clapping her hands together. First things first, go in the bathroom. You need to shave your legs. Why, I asked, my voice cracking slightly. 2 reasons, Janet explained patiently. First, leg hair, even fine hair, will catch on the nylon and cause it to rud and snag. Pantyhose are delicate. Second, aesthetically, it just looks better. You wanted the full experience. Right. This is part of it. She handed me a new pink razor and a can of shaving cream. Defeated. I trudged into the bathroom and locked the door. I looked at my legs. Covered in the same dark hair they'd had my entire adult life, it felt profoundly weird to be getting rid of it. Awkwardly, I lathered up one leg and started scraping. It was a clumsy, slow process. I nicked myself twice behind the knee, but when I rinsed it off, I was shocked by the result. My skin was pale and smooth, completely alien to me. I finished the other leg and stood there for a moment, just feeling the cool air on my newly bare skin. It was different. Not bad. Just incredibly strange. When I emerged, a new set of items was laid out for me on the couch. Julie picked up a pair of beige, silky-looking panties with a delicate lace trim at the edges. Okay, step 2 undergarments, she said, holding them up. These are control top panties. They're a bit snug, but they help smooth everything out and, more importantly, they'll help keep your pantyhose waistband from rolling down. She handed them to me and gestured toward the bathroom. My face was burning. I'd never been this mortified in my life. I went back into the bathroom and slipped them on. The fabric was softer than any underwear I'd ever worn, clinging to my skin in a way that was both confining and surprisingly comfortable. The control top panel felt snug around my waist, a constant, gentle pressure. Back in the living room, Julie held up a sheer, flesh-toned pair of pantyhose. Now for the main event. These are called nude or suntan shade. They're 15 denier, which is a measure of sheerness, pretty standard for office wear. She then gave me a lesson I never thought I'd need: how to put on pantyhose without destroying them. First, check your fingernails. Any rough edges. They can snag the fabric instantly. Now, bunch up one leg all the way down to the toe, like a little nylon donut. Point your toe and slide your foot in. Gently. Then, slowly, carefully, pull it up your leg, making sure it's straight. Then do the other side. Once both legs are up, you stand and pull the panty part up to your waist. I followed her instructions, my movements clumsy and uncertain. The feeling of the delicate nylon sliding over my smooth skin was a bizarre new sensation. It was like pulling on a second, tighter, silkier skin. The fabric was cool and smooth, and it created a faint, pleasant friction against itself as I moved. Once they were on, I stood up. My legs felt contained, smoothed over. The control top of the pantyhose, combined with the panties, created a firm, secure feeling around my midsection. Not so bad. Right, Monica asked. I just nodded, not trusting my voice. Time for the dress, Heather said, holding up a simple, knee-length, A-line business dress in a conservative navy blue. It had short sleeves and a modest neckline. Changing into it was another new level of awkward. I pulled it over my head, and the fabric settled over my shoulders and torso. It felt wrong. The way it hung, the lack of legs, the feeling of air on my lower half, only separated by the thin layer of nylon. It was restrictive. I couldn't take a wide stance. My movements immediately felt smaller, more constrained. And the final touch, Laura said, holding up a pair of simple black pumps with a low, 2-inch block heel. Can't wear a dress with your work boots. Getting my feet into them was a struggle, but I managed. I stood up and immediately wobbled. My weight was pitched forward onto the balls of my feet. It felt unstable, precarious. Walk a little, Julie encouraged. I took a few tentative steps across her living room. My gait was short and stilted. I had to focus on every movement. The click of the heels on her hardwood floor sounded impossibly loud. The women clapped. You look like a very confused flight attendant, Becky quipped, but there was no malice in it. I looked at my reflection in Julie's full-length mirror. I saw a man's torso and face sticking out of a woman's outfit. My shaved legs looked pale and strange, encased in a shimmering layer of nylon. I felt a confusing cocktail of emotions deep. Profound embarrassment, a strange sense of vulnerability, and a tiny buried spark of curiosity. The challenge was real, and it was starting tomorrow. I woke up on Monday morning with a knot of dread in my stomach. The first thing I did, as per the rules, was reach for the nude pantyhose and control panties laid out on my dresser. Pulling them on in the quiet of my own bedroom felt surreal. The sensation of the nylon on my freshly shaved legs was still novel, a constant, smooth, tactile reminder of the day ahead. I then pulled on my usual jeans and a t-shirt over them. The feeling of the denim rubbing against the sheer nylon was strange, a texture combination I'd never imagined. It wasn't uncomfortable, just present. A secret layer that only I knew about. Driving to work, my anxiety was through the roof. At the office, I gave my co-workers a tight, nervous nod and immediately escaped to the men's restroom, a duffel bag clutched in my hand. Inside the stall, my heart hammered against my ribs. I took off my jeans and shirt, leaving me standing there in just the pantyhose and panties. Then, I pulled the navy blue dress over my head. Finally, I swapped my sneakers for the low black pumps. I took a deep breath and looked down. My own legs, now encased in nylon and ending in women's shoes, looked like they belonged to someone else. The swish of the dress around my knees as I moved felt completely alien. This was it. I unlocked the stall and walked to the sink to wash my hands. My reflection was a jarring sight. I felt exposed. A fraud. Taking a final shaky breath, I pushed open the restroom door and walked back into the office. The usual morning chatter died down for a second as I entered. 6 pairs of eyes glanced at me, then quickly away, true to their word. No one laughed. No one stared. They just went back to their work. Though I could feel the weight of their awareness. I made my way to my desk, my walk a clumsy, heel-clicking shuffle. Sitting down was my first real challenge. I just plopped down like I usually would, and the skirt rode halfway up my thighs. Ahem, a voice said. It was Monica. At the desk next to mine. She leaned over, speaking softly so only I could hear. When you sit in a skirt, you keep your knees together, and before you sit, you sort of smooth the back of the skirt down underneath you, otherwise it bunches up. Oh, right. Thanks, I mumbled, my face turning crimson. I awkwardly tried to adjust, pulling the hem of the dress down over my nylon-clad knees. The first few hours were a lesson in constant physical awareness. The pantyhose felt like a gentle, all-over hug on my legs, but the control top was starting to feel like a vice around my waist. The heels forced me to sit with better posture, but my feet were already beginning to ache. Every time I had to get up to go to the file room, I was conscious of the click-clack of my shoes on the linoleum and the swish of the dress. I had to take smaller steps. Reaching for a file on a low shelf involved an awkward squat rather than a simple bend at the waist, a maneuver I hadn't even considered. Around noon, Julie quietly came over. How's it going? It's an experience, I said. My feet hurt, and this waistband is killing me. She nodded sympathetically. Welcome to our world, but you have to admit, she added, a slight twinkle in her eye. There's something about the feeling of the nylon, isn't there? I thought about it. The constant, smooth sensation on my skin. It wasn't exactly pleasant, but it wasn't entirely unpleasant either. It was just there. A constant reminder of my new reality. It's definitely a feeling. I conceded. For the rest of the day, the women subtly guided me. Janet showed me how to cross my legs at the ankle instead of the knee, to be more ladylike and prevent the skirt from riding up. Becky pointed out a tiny run that had started near my ankle, probably from when I'd bumped into my desk. See, she said, they're so fragile. Now you'll be thinking about that little run all day. And she was right. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, I was exhausted. Not from the work, but from the effort of simply existing in these clothes. My feet throbbed, my waist was sore, and my brain was fried from the constant self-monitoring. I changed back into my jeans and sneakers in the restroom with a profound sense of relief. But as I walked to my car, I could still feel the ghost of the pantyhose on my skin. The challenge had only just begun. On Tuesday, I arrived to find a new addition to my desk, a shoebox. Inside was a pair of black, patent leather heels. They were higher than the first pair, a good 3 inches, with a delicate strap that buckled around the ankle. A note from Laura was attached. Block heels are for beginners. Time to level up. I spent my morning in a grey pencil skirt and a white blouse they had provided. The pencil skirt was even more restrictive than the A-line dress, forcing my legs to stay close together. Walking in the new heels was like learning to walk all over again. I teetered, my ankles wobbling with every step. My calf muscles screamed in protest. "You're walking on your toes," Laura observed as I stumbled back from the printer. "You need to walk heel to toe, even in heels. It distributes your weight better. Put your shoulders back, engage your core. It's a full-body exercise." It really was. By midday, my lower back ached along with my feet. Bending over was now a major logistical problem. I had to get a file from a bottom drawer and nearly flashed the entire office. "Knees, Ethan, knees," Monica called out from her desk. "Bend at the knees, not the waist." Keep your back straight. I felt like a puppet learning to move its limbs, but slowly, painstakingly. I started to get the hang of it. I learned to navigate the office with a new, more deliberate gait. I even started to appreciate the way the higher heels made my nylon-clad legs look longer and more shapely. It was a vain thought, and it surprised me. Wednesday was pattern day. Janet had left a pair of sheer black pantyhose with a subtle diamond pattern on my desk, along with a simple black sheath dress. The patterned hose felt more daring, more decorative. They drew more attention to my legs, which made me even more self-conscious. But I also found myself looking down at them, intrigued by the way the patterns stretched over the curves of my calf and knee. The interactions with my co-workers were changing. The initial tension was gone, replaced by a kind of conspiratorial camaraderie. They were my coaches, my mentors in this strange new world. They'd offer quiet tips, a nod of approval, or a shared, knowing eye roll when I snagged my hose on the corner of a desk. I was starting to understand that this wasn't just about discomfort. It was about a whole set of unwritten rules and physical negotiations that I, as a man, had never once had to consider. Thursday was the day everything changed. I came into work, did my usual change in the restroom, and settled in for the day in a burgundy wrap dress and another pair of nude pantyhose. The day proceeded normally until it was time to leave. I went to the restroom to change back into my street clothes, and my duffel bag was gone. My jeans, my shirt, my sneakers, my car keys all vanished. I felt a surge of pure panic. I came out of the restroom, my heart pounding. "Okay." "Very funny," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who has my bag?" The 6 women looked at me, their faces a mixture of guilt and determination. "We're sorry." "Ethan," Julie said, stepping forward. "But your second condition office only was holding you back from the full experience. You need to understand what it's like to be out in the world like this." "You're kidding me," I whispered, horrified. "I can't go outside like this. My keys were in there. How am I supposed to get home?" "You're staying at my place tonight," Julie said firmly. "I'll drive us. You'll have to take the bus to work with me tomorrow morning." I was trapped. Arguing was pointless. I was completely at their mercy. The drive to Julie's apartment was silent and tense. I felt humiliated, angry, and utterly powerless. I sat in her passenger seat, acutely aware of my dress, my bare-feeling legs in their thin nylon sheath, and the ridiculous heels on my feet. When we got to her apartment, she didn't gloat. Instead, her demeanor softened. "Look, Ethan, I know this is extreme, but we need you to see it all. The good, the bad, and the ugly." The ugly started immediately. She sat me down in front of her vanity mirror. "If you're going to be in public, you need to blend in a little more." Out came the makeup. I sat in stunned silence as she applied foundation, the cool liquid feeling strange on my skin. She filled in my eyebrows, applied a subtle line of brown eyeliner that made my eyes look completely different, and finished with a coat of mascara. Then came a sheer neutral-colored lipstick. I looked at my reflection and didn't recognize the person staring back. "And for the final piece," she said, pulling a long, dark brown wig from a box. She carefully fitted it onto my head, arranging the synthetic hair around my shoulders. The transformation was complete. I was no longer Ethan in a dress. I was someone else. A strange, tall woman who looked vaguely like me. The feeling was profoundly disorienting. Julie then handed me a handbag. "For your phone and wallet." The next morning was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. We walked to the bus stop, my heels clicking awkwardly on the pavement. Every passing car felt like a judgment. I was hyper-aware of the cool morning air on my legs, the way the dress swished against my nylons. I felt a breeze and had a moment of panic, instinctively putting a hand down to hold my skirt in place, a gesture I'd seen women do a million times but never understood until that moment. At the bus stop, I tried to make myself invisible. I kept my head down, my arms wrapped around myself. A couple of people glanced at me, their eyes lingering a little too long, but no one said anything. The bus ride was an eternity of quiet paranoia. Walking from the bus stop to our office building was the final gauntlet. I felt the eyes of every pedestrian on me. I was a spectacle. When we finally stepped into the elevator, I leaned against the wall, my whole body trembling with adrenaline and relief. When we walked into the office, the other women were already there. They looked at me, and for the first time, I saw genuine awe in their eyes. "Wow, Ethan," Heather breathed. You actually look." "Don't say it," I muttered, sinking into my desk chair. The familiar discomfort of it, a small comfort. Later that afternoon, Becky came over with a small bottle of bright red nail polish. "The look isn't complete," she said with a grin. Before I could protest, she had taken my hand and was carefully painting my nails. I watched, mesmerized, as the glossy color covered my short, blunt fingernails. It was another layer of artifice, another step further away from the man I was used to being. I was no longer just wearing a costume. The costume was starting to wear me. After the trauma of Public Day, I thought nothing could surprise me. I was wrong. On Friday morning, my new outfit was laid out on Julie's guest bed. It was a slightly shorter, light yellow dress, and instead of pantyhose, there was a lacy, white garter belt and a pair of sheer, thigh-high stockings. "Time for another lesson in the history of hosiery," Julie said, seeing my confused expression. "Before pantyhose, this was how it was done." She showed me how to put on the garter belt, a flimsy-looking contraption that sat on my hips. Then came the stockings. The feeling was immediately different from pantyhose. Rolling the delicate, silky tube up my leg was an intimate act. The stocking stopped mid-thigh, held in place by a thin silicone band at the top. The garter belt had 4 adjustable straps with little rubber and metal clips on the end. Attaching them to the tops of the stockings was a fiddly, frustrating process. But once it was done, the sensation was revelatory. My legs were encased in the same smooth nylon, but my upper thighs and hips were bare. It felt less restrictive, cooler, and dare I say, more comfortable than the full pantyhose. The gentle pull of the garter straps was a constant, subtle reminder of what I was wearing. At work, the shorter dress made me even more conscious of my posture. When I sat, I had to be extra careful to keep my knees clamped together, paranoid that the lacy top of a stocking might peek out. But something had shifted in me. The initial, overwhelming shame was being replaced by a complex mix of acceptance and even a sliver of enjoyment. I was starting to notice the aesthetics. I saw how the sheer stockings caught the light. I understood the appeal of the different textures, the soft fabric of the dress, the slickness of the nylon, the delicate lace of the garter belt. During our lunch break, the conversation was light and easy for the first time in weeks. I found myself asking them questions, genuinely curious. "Is it always this much work? Do you really think about all this stuff every morning? Every single day?" Janet confirmed, "What top goes with what pants? Are these shoes comfortable enough to last the day? Do I have a matching bra?" It's a whole mental checklist you guys just don't have. I was beginning to understand. This wasn't just about putting on clothes. It was a performance, a construction, a daily effort. And in a strange way, I was starting to get good at my part. I was walking more confidently in the heels. I was sitting and moving with a newfound, learned grace. The man who had callously dismissed their complaints a week ago felt like a different person. I was still Ethan, but an Ethan who had seen behind the curtain, and the view was changing everything. The start of the second week felt like crossing a threshold. The terror had largely subsided, replaced by a strange sense of routine. My lost clothes and keys had been returned at the end of Friday, but the spell had been cast. The idea of going out in public, while still nerve-wracking, was no longer the insurmountable peak of horror it had once been. On Monday, I walked into the office and found a sleek grey pencil skirt, a soft silk blouse in a muted teal, and a pair of sheer off-black pantyhose waiting for me. This time, there were no instructions. They were trusting me to assemble the look myself. In the restroom, I changed with a new efficiency. I rolled the pantyhose on with practiced ease, pulled the blouse over my head, and zipped up the skirt. I even managed the ankle strap heels without fumbling. When I walked out, I felt a flicker of something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't pride. Not yet. But it was a sense of competence. I knew how to move in these clothes now. I sat at my desk, automatically crossing my ankles and smoothing my skirt. The dynamic with my colleagues had settled into a comfortable new normal. They treated me less like a student and more like an initiate. Our conversations deepened. We talked about more than just the mechanics of dressing. You know, the worst part is the unsolicited comments Heather shared during a coffee break on Tuesday, while I was navigating the day in a floral A-line dress and glossy tan pantyhose. Strangers telling you to smile, guys commenting on your legs. It makes you feel like your body is public property. I thought about my bus ride, the lingering stares. I hadn't been catcalled, but I had felt that intense, invasive scrutiny. I had felt like an object on display. I think I get that now, I said, and I meant it. I started taking more initiative. On Wednesday, after navigating the office in a flowy maxi dress that felt wonderfully liberating, but was a nightmare near the rolling desk chairs, I spent my evening doing something I'd never imagined. I went online. I didn't search for anything lurid. I searched for cross-dressing tips, men in skirts, and gendered clothing history. I fell down a rabbit hole of forums and blogs. I found communities of men like me straight, cisgender men who simply enjoyed the fabrics, the styles, and the feeling of wearing women's clothing. They weren't trying to be women. They were just expanding their own definition of what it meant to be a man. It was eye-opening. They talked about the joy of satin and silk, the confidence a great pair of heels could bring, the specific tactile pleasure of sheer nylon on shaved skin. I saw my own budding feelings reflected in their posts. I learned about different types of hose, the high gloss of shiny pantyhose, the subtle matte finish, the allure of seamed stockings. I started to understand the language. I learned to hand wash my hosiery in the sink at Julie's. I was still staying there, as it had just become easier with a special gentle detergent to make them last longer. I was becoming an expert against my will. And yet, I wasn't entirely against it. The experience was becoming less of a punishment and more of an education, both about women and, unexpectedly, about myself. The real test came on Thursday. I was wearing a conservative, professional-looking navy blue sheath dress with nude pantyhose and my trusty 2-inch pumps. I felt put together, almost comfortable. We were in the middle of a big project, digitizing old case files, and I was retrieving a box from the high shelf in the archive room when Mr. Henderson arrived. Mr. Henderson was a senior partner at the law firm, a man in his 60s who visited our office a few times a year. He was important, and he was famously old school. My heart leapt into my throat. The women exchanged panicked glances. There was no time to change, no time to hide. I came out of the archive room, a dusty box in my arms. He was standing there, Talking to Julie. He turned as I approached. His eyes scanned me from my head to my heels. I saw a flicker of confusion, then dawning recognition. I froze, waiting for the explosion, the confused questions, the call to our supervisor. I braced myself, my face burning with shame. "Mr. Carter," he said, his voice a low rumble. Yes, sir," I stammered, placing the box on a table. He looked at my dress, my legs, my shoes. Then he looked me in the eye. I prepared for the worst. "That's a very bold choice for a Thursday," he said, a small, wry smile playing on his lips. Julie quickly stepped in. "Ethan is in the middle of a social experiment. Mr. Henderson. A 2-week project on workplace empathy." Mr. Henderson chuckled. A deep, rumbling sound. "Empathy? Well, I'll be. My wife wore pantyhose like that for 40 years. Said they were a medieval torture device. Takes a brave man to walk a mile in those. Son," he clapped me on the shoulder. "Don't let me interrupt. Carry on." And with that, he turned back to Julie to continue his conversation. I stood there, stunned. The women were equally shocked. The worst-case scenario I had been dreading had turned into a non-event, a moment of validation from the most unlikely source. It was a turning point. Mr. Henderson's non-judgmental, almost amused reaction made me question my own fears. Maybe the world wasn't as rigid as I thought. Maybe my own anxiety was the biggest prison of all. The incident sparked a new wave of introspection. Was this just a challenge anymore? I was starting to enjoy it. I liked the feeling of the smooth nylon. I liked the confidence the structured outfits gave me. I liked the camaraderie it had built with my co-workers. But what did that mean I wasn't transgender? I was still attracted to women. Julie, in particular, had become a close confidant, and I was starting to feel a spark between us that went beyond friendship. This was just clothes. Fabric. But it was fabric that was fundamentally changing how I saw myself and the world. For the final day of the challenge, I decided to take control. The night before, I told Julie I didn't want an outfit laid out for me. I wanted to choose my own. She smiled and simply pointed me toward the closet where they had been stashing all the clothes. I spent almost an hour looking through the options. I thought about everything I had learned. The restrictive pencil skirt, the freeing maxi dress, the professional sheath. I thought about the different feelings of pantyhose versus stockings. In the end, I made a choice that felt like mine. I chose a striking, deep red dress. It was a simple, elegant cut, with 3/4 sleeves and a hem that fell just to the top of my knees. It was bold, but professional. To go with it, I selected a pair of sheer, glossy black pantyhose. They felt more dramatic and intentional than the standard nude. For shoes, I chose the 3-inch patent leather heels. They were still a challenge, but I had mastered them. I even decided to apply a light coat of mascara and a touch of the neutral lipstick myself, my hands surprisingly steady. When I walked into the office on Friday morning, I didn't feel like Ethan in a dress. I felt like Ethan. I felt confident, powerful. Even the women's reactions said it all. Their jaws literally dropped. "Okay, you did not just pick that out yourself," Becky said, circling me. "That is a look. You look amazing." "Ethan," Laura said, her voice full of genuine admiration. I felt a genuine, unforced smile spread across my face. "Thanks. I kind of like it." The day was a strange mix of triumph and melancholy. I was acing the challenge, But I was also facing a new internal conflict. I loved the feeling of the dress swishing around my knees. I loved the sleek, contained feeling of the black nylons on my legs. But what happened on Monday? Did this all just disappear? Did I go back to being plain old Ethan in slacks and a button-down, pretending these 2 weeks never happened? The thought left me with a surprising sense of loss. I felt like I had discovered a new room in my own house, a room I never knew existed. And on Monday, the door was going to be locked forever. As 5 o'clock on that final Friday approached, I felt a familiar pang of relief mixed with that new, strange sadness. I was about to head to the restroom for the last time to change back into my male clothes when Julie stopped me. "Not so fast," she said, a playful smile on her face. "We're not done with you yet." She led me to the break room. The rest of the women were gathered there, and the table, which 2 weeks ago had been the site of my public shaming, was now decorated with a small cake and a bottle of champagne. A banner made of printer paper and magic marker was taped to the wall. It read, "Congrats! Ethan, you survived." I stood in the doorway, genuinely touched. "Guys, you didn't have to do this." "Of course we did," Monica said, handing me a glass of champagne. "You held up your end of the bargain. And then some. We're proud of you." "Ethan," Janet added quietly, "you took what we said to heart, and you really committed to this. You didn't just put on the clothes, you tried to understand." They had a small pile of wrapped gifts on the table. "For you," Becky said, pushing them toward me. I unwrapped the first one. It was a collection of high-quality pantyhose in various shades and deniers: black, nude, suntan, even a smoky grey. The next gift was a set of delicate, lacy panties, similar to the ones I'd been borrowing. The final gift was a long, flat box. I opened it to find a beautifully tailored dress, a charcoal grey sheath made from a material with a slight stretch. We all chipped in. Laura said, "We took your measurements when you weren't looking. Figured you should have one of your own." I was speechless. I looked at the gifts, at the cake, at their smiling faces. A wave of emotion washed over me. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick. I don't know what to say." I took a sip of champagne, gathering my thoughts. It was time to be honest. "When you first proposed this," I began, looking around the room at each of them, "I thought it was a punishment, a joke, and for the first few days, it felt like it. I was embarrassed. I was angry. I felt humiliated. But then, something happened. I looked down at my own hands, my red painted nails a stark contrast against my skin. I started to get it. The discomfort, the effort, the constant awareness. But I also started to feel other things. I actually like the feeling of wearing pantyhose. It's comforting. In a weird way. I like the confidence that comes with a well-put-together outfit. This whole experience. It didn't just teach me about you, it taught me about me. I finally looked up, meeting Julie's eyes. The truth is, I'm going to miss this, and that scares the hell out of me. I'm not sure what to do with that feeling. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Julie stepped forward, her expression serious but kind. "You know, Ethan, when we came up with this challenge, our motives weren't entirely pure. We wanted to teach you a lesson. We wanted to knock you down a peg. We were angry." She paused, taking a breath. "But watching you these last 2 weeks, you've been so open, so willing to be vulnerable. You've shown more courage than any of us expected. What started as a way to prove you wrong turned into all of us respecting you more. We don't see you as the clueless guy who made a dumb comment anymore. We see you as a friend. A true friend. She reached out and put her hand on my arm. So here's our final offer. The challenge is over. You won. But our promise still stands. We'll wear skirts and dresses more often. And as for you, if you want to keep wearing pantyhose under your pants, you should. If you want to wear this dress to the Christmas party, you should. We've got your back. This office is a safe space. The following Monday, I stood in front of my closet, a place that now felt both familiar and foreign. My old uniform of slacks and button-downs seemed drab, lifeless. On my dresser lay a fresh pair of nude pantyhose. For a moment, I hesitated. The challenge was over. I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I sat on the edge of my bed and carefully pulled them on. The familiar silky smoothness enveloped my legs. It felt like a secret, a quiet rebellion, a small piece of my new self that I was keeping. I pulled on a pair of grey slacks and a blue shirt, the fabric of the pants sliding easily over the nylon. It was my own private comfort, a hidden layer of confidence. Work felt different. The air was lighter, the chatter easier. The women, true to their word, were a kaleidoscope of colour and style. Julie was in a green dress, Becky in a floral skirt. It was as if my bizarre experiment had liberated all of us. That week, I asked Julie out on a proper date, not as my cross-dressing coach, but as Ethan. We went to dinner, and the conversation flowed easily. We talked about everything but the challenge, and yet, it was the unspoken foundation of our new connection. She had seen me at my most vulnerable, and instead of mocking me, she had guided me. Our relationship was built on a rare kind of intimacy and a deep well of mutual respect. I continued to explore my newfound interest privately. The online forums became a source of community. I connected with other men who shared this interest, learning from their experiences. I realized that my identity wasn't a fixed point. It was a spectrum. Liking the feel of nylon or the elegance of a dress didn't make me less of a man. It just made me a more complex one. A few months later, at the office Christmas party, I decided to take them up on their offer. After a long talk with Julie, I chose to wear the charcoal grey dress they had given me. I paired it with sheer black stockings held up by a new garter belt I'd bought myself, and a pair of polished black heels. I didn't wear the wig or heavy makeup, just my own short hair and the confidence I had earned. Walking into that party was nerve-wracking, but the moment I entered, my co-workers burst into applause. Julie came to my side, slipping her arm through mine, her smile radiant. Throughout the night, people from other departments gave me curious looks, but my team formed a protective, supportive circle around me. The story ends there, but it also doesn't. My life didn't become a daily parade of dresses and heels. Most days, I still wear slacks to the office, but almost always with a pair of pantyhose hidden underneath. They are my personal armor, a sensory reminder of the journey I took. But sometimes, on a day when I need a little extra confidence, or when the mood just strikes, I'll choose a dress. I'll walk into the office. The gentle swish of the skirt, a familiar sound. The click of my heels, a steady rhythm on the floor. I'm no longer Ethan, the lone man in an office of women. I'm Ethan, a person who learned that empathy is more than just a word, and that, sometimes, the most restrictive clothes can lead to the greatest sense of freedom. I am myself, all of myself, and for the first time, I feel completely whole.